This is a reading taken from the first chapter of The Broken King by Philip Womack. Chapter 1. I Call the Broken King. Simon watched his parents drive away, his head throbbing and his heart heavy as the fading light of the late evening summer sun filled the front garden of the cottage. "Look after Anna," his father called out of the car window. His mother waved, smart in her old evening dress. And then the car turned the corner, and Simon watched after them as they trundled down the drive leading to the cliffs, with the beach below and the grey vastness of the sea beyond. Silver lights were forming in the waves, in the shapes of birds, horses, deer. Simon went back inside. His little sister, Anna, was perched on the stairs. She sprang up and ran into the sitting room. The first thing she did was turn on the sound system and put on a pop song that Simon particularly hated. "Look after her," Dad said, thought Simon. What does he know? She doesn't need looking after. He passed the door to the sitting room and glanced in to see her jumping up and down, tunelessly singing the words to the song. She's perfectly happy, he thought. Sighing, he pushed onto the kitchen, where his mother's laptop sat on the table, and logged on to a social network. There was nothing new. His friends from his old school were all on holiday. He hadn't made any new ones round here yet. He put his earphones in and selected one of his favourite tracks, trying to block out Anna's noise. He'd saved up for the music player. He hadn't been allowed a laptop, not after what had happened to his family. It was the only thing he had left from his life in London, after Dad had lost his job and they'd come to live here in this rented cottage. "Come and dance!" It was Anna next to him, tugging at his sleeve. His head throbbed more. He took out one of the earphones. "Leave me alone," he said quietly. Anna ran back into the sitting room and started the song again from the beginning. Filled with sudden fury, Simon got off the stool and stormed out of the kitchen. "Turn it down, Anna," he demanded, moving towards her. She turned it up louder. Simon tore out his other earphone. "Anna, I said turn it down." But it had no effect on her. Giggling, she turned her back on Simon, twisted the dial right up to near the top. The noise was enormous. It thudded in Simon's mind, making his head throb worse. "Why do you always have to be so annoying?" Simon pushed past her and managed to switch off the music system. The silence rang around them. "Why don't you ever do what I want?" replied Anna, turning it on again. "We always do what you want, never what I want." "That's totally not true," thought Simon. He seemed to spend his life giving in to his sister. "I've got a headache. It really hurts. You just don't care about anyone except yourself." Anna stuck her tongue out and started doing a dance. "Your songs are stupid anyway," she said. "You only listen to all that boring stuff." She made a grab for his music player, but Simon held it out of her reach. Anna jiggled around. "My favourite programme's on," she said, and made for the TV. Soon its light and sound were competing with the music. Simon closed his eyes and grimaced. He remembered something that would frighten her. He rummaged about in the books on the shelf. There were some fairy stories there, things they'd been read as little children in their other lives before they'd moved and everything changed. "You know what happens to little girls who annoy their brothers?" asked Simon. He picked up one of the books. It was called In the Land of the Broken King. "I don't care," mocked Anna, swishing around the room. The noise was building higher and higher, voices blaring and beats thumping. It was getting too much for Simon. Simon could feel the anger bubbling up inside him. He wanted to scream at her. He wanted to be with his friends. He wanted to be on the sea, in the desert, at the North Pole, anywhere but here with his annoying little sister. "You know the rhyme, don't you?" said Simon, turning down the TV. "You remember it from when we were little. You remember how scary it was?" The illustrations in particular, he thought. In the whole book there was never a picture of the Broken King himself. There were just empty, desolate spaces, full of small figures struggling against the wind, and black glass towers rearing into the sky, full of strange lights. Snorting with laughter, Anna pushed the volume button on the TV remote louder again. It was a game show, with lots of bleeping sounds and calls from the audience. Simon didn't understand why on earth Anna could be interested in it. Anna was now bouncing up and down on the sofa near the cabinet where his parents' few remaining bits of china were kept by a tall glass vase full of tulips. "Anna, stop, you'll break something." Simon opened the book. "It's in here somewhere," he thought. The rhyme for getting rid of annoying siblings. A shadow crossed his mind, and he blinked. Why did I think of it now, he wondered. He didn't know. It had come out to him of some deep memory. It'll scare her for sure, and that's all I want to do. Scare her, so she'll be quiet and leave me alone. I don't care, shouted Anna joyfully, bouncing in time to the music, each word thudding with the beat. I'll call Mum and Dad, said Simon, even though he knew that wouldn't work. Don't care. She jumped and fell, and with her elbow managed to knock over the vase. The glass shattered, and red petals shone wetly on the carpet. I'll call the police. He waited for the effect. But it made no difference. Anna, doubled up, was rolling around on the floor. Silly old Simon! Smelly old Simon! Simon ground his teeth. She leapt up, made another grab for his music player, and tore it from his grasp. She put it into her ears and started doing a stupid dance. Give it back! Give that back! He snatched for it, but she jumped out of his reach. Oh, I'm Simon. I'm so clever. I like really boring music. Anna was striking a pose and laughing. That's it, thought Simon. He made to grab the music player from her hand. They tussled over it. Simon pulled hard, and Anna pulled back harder. She slipped. The player flew up into the air and fell right into the pool of water that the vase had made. Simon watched helplessly as the screen went a funny colour. You've broken it, he said. He lifted it up from the water and pressed its buttons. The screen remained a dull purple. He flung it aside in rage. Don't care, shouted Anna. Outside, the sun was almost touching the sea. Right, he thought. I'll teach you a lesson. Anger was twisting inside his belly. I'll go round the room and I'll pretend to be the broken king and I'll give you the fright of your life. It was then that he found the rhyme. The book fell open to the right page. He glanced over it. 3 times, and the broken king will take her. The poem looked different from how he remembered it. That's because it's been so long since I read it, he thought. He looked at the book in his hands. The illustrations gave him the shivers. Don't be silly. It's just a book. Anna, I'm going to do it. I'm going to call him. I'm going to call the broken king and he's going to take you away. I'll show her, he thought. The sun hovered on the horizon. Anna shrieked. I'm not scared of him anymore. The television blared. Simon gritted his jaw and took a deep breath. Now, what did you have to do, he wondered. It was 3 times round the room, anti-clockwise. Widdershins, they called it in the book. Then, just as the sun sets, I'll frighten her. I'm starting. He held the book out open on the page and stalked round the room once, backwards, tripping over one of Anna's dolls and nearly stepping on the remote control. Anna was laughing hysterically in the middle of the carpet, rolling from side to side and waving her arms around. Simon beat his foot on the ground in time to his chanting. He intoned, heavily, loudly. I call the broken king. Walk backwards thrice in a ring. Anna gurgled with laughter. Simon, Simon, smelly old Simon. He carried on, pacing. The sun was sinking, the room filling with twilight. Shadows slid around the edges of the walls. It was almost as if he wasn't in control of himself. He found himself speaking the words of the poem without thinking about them. He'll come in blinding light. He'll wrap you in the night. Simon was barely aware of the movement of his body. A buzzing was filling his mind. His limbs felt light and strange, his voice as if it was coming from somewhere that wasn't his own throat. It was like some other power had taken over him. He couldn't stop now, even if he wanted to. Before the start of day, the broken king will take you away. He finished by the sofa, the last syllable drowned out by the chorus of Anna's pop song. The sun's rays pulled back from the room, and everything darkened. Simon suddenly felt silly. Why would I want to scare her, he thought, and paused. Anna was lying on her back, shaking with laughter. Another song was playing. Simon reached over behind the sofa to turn it off, then picked up the remote and switched the TV off too. Its red light gleamed. He lit a standing lamp and was grateful for the glow it cast. Simon was shivering. The buzzing noise in his mind gradually dimmed, and left him with nothing but his headache. He looked at Anna, who was now still, and felt a sudden rush of love for his sister. She sat up and regarded him reproachfully. Come on now, Anna. It's time for bed, he said gently. Nothing's going to get you. Don't want to go to bed, she squealed. I want ice cream. Irritation swarmed through Simon. He clenched his teeth and pushed it down. She is my little sister, he thought. He reached out to her. She stopped squealing, looked up at him, and smiled. Come on, you silly thing, said Simon softly. And then the shadow passed over his mind again, and Simon heard a sound like a horn blowing. It was so loud he had to cover his ears. It grew louder and louder until he had to kneel down on the floor, as if it was physically battering him. Light filled the room, bright and white. Something was shaking. The moon was bright and quivering. Somewhere doors were opening and things were sliding through, shadows stealing towards them, a sword shining and cruel, shapes flitting through the night, shapes like humans, looming, tall, reaching towards Anna. What's going on? Thought Simon, panicking. It can't be the broken king. But there was somebody standing over Anna, a dark shape, and it was holding a sword. Simon tried to move, but the force of the sound prevented him. He heard Anna screaming and called her name. In the light he saw a white face and teeth gleaming. He forced himself forwards. The figure laid hold of Anna's arm. Simon, she called, help me! Summoning all his strength, Simon crawled on his hands and knees towards Anna. The sound of the horn became unbearable. He put his hands to his ears once more. The figure hauled Anna up from the ground and stepped back into the blinding light. Simon! Simon! Her voice was fainter now. Simon held a hand in front of his eyes. He saw the figure bow and smile and heard Anna call his name again. Light glinted off the steel of the sword, and the figure turned, and Anna screamed, and Simon ran towards her, and then there was nothing. Simon fell to the floor and saw that there was blood on his hand from where he'd taken it away from his ear, and then he slipped down into darkness.